Awesome.
And that kind of jumps us up to, if we talked about ghosts being spirits, and then we passed over. Um, I have 1,000 questions about passing over and what is on the other side.
Yeah.
Um, how that what that process is, and yeah, we'll just start with that. What is, I guess, what is the veil and what's on the other side?
Okay. So what is the veil and what is on the other side? They're showing it's like so thin. So they're showing it as almost like you're in a tent.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. They're actually kind of showing it in a way of like kind of like sacred geometry. So just like they're showing me actual shapes. So like
Oh.
they're showing me like windows like that on either
Mhm.
side. And then they're just like, just unzip, like just unzip it. It's not, they're saying we kind of have to pierce through like okay, there, yes, everything that we know as life or as death or anything, any big transition is always cushioned by a wall. So we're in the, keep on showing me in utero, you're in a container. You're just flopping around in your mom's womb. You're literally in the placenta, and that's a veil. You're also in your mother's womb. That's a veil. You come into all different scenarios insulated, and they say it's also for your own protection. It's the concept that we can't understand love. If we were to know all of it, we wouldn't be, our body cannot contain it. So that's why we're in body to begin with. And so we're always trying to push past it. But some things, it's not important to push past it. So it's just kind of like in meditation, a lot of yogis or people, they're trying to go beyond the body. The best way to do that is do it through the mind rather than the levitation.
Mm.
So a lot of people try to do it through the levitation. And I will tell you, from actual personal experience, is that's overrated because the re-entry is
Yeah.
extremely hard and traumatic.
Okay.
And you don't even know it's traumatic till you're suffering when you're continually trying to get in. And so for
Mhm.
years after my NDE, when I was so far out and then I got sucked back in like a vacuum cleaner, when I was in, I was constantly in and out, constantly. So I was constantly in and out that veil.
Mm.
So I was constantly pushing that boundary, and it took me years. I mean, literally years. I would say even more than years, but I would say a good chunk of my high school time of really getting, and it was also hormonal. So that's whenever people go through the hormonal cycle, oh my God, be so gentle with them, because when you're, that's a breaking of the barrier. It's the
Mm.
same thing with sex. It's the same thing with, all that kind of stuff. It's a breaking, it's an explosion, it's a breaking the barrier. So we have so many veils. This is all new to me. I love when I get in this intuition come because I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm so paying attention, taking notes. But I keep on getting that it's the breaking of barrier, and we have so many veils that we are experiencing in our life. And so you also look at the things that are hard in your life of saying, oh, this might just be me learning the barrier, and
Mm.
that how can it actually serve me? I don't have to go beyond it. It'll push me when it needs to, you know what I'm
Mm.
saying? Gently, like birth, even though birth could be really traumatic, but it'll move
Yeah.
me when I need to go.
Yeah.
But I don't have to do anything about it. My
Okay.
body is just naturally ready. My head is down. I'm already in, position, whether I'm C-sectioned or not, doesn't matter. But I'm already, just like how birds fly, you just know the direction that you're supposed to be going. And so you're not breaking the barrier by will. You're breaking the barrier by allowance and invitation for yourself. Like you're ready to crack that egg, and you're ready to uh be the butterfly, you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
But it has to be in your own perfect timing, and that's not through the mind, that's actually through the body.
Mm.
So the what's after is just kind of almost like they keep on showing me, it's like an so for us in 3D life, it
Mhm.
is just our another life experience.
Mm.
So I really believe that
Oh,
we
I think
we
you
all
froze
have
up there, Vanessa.
NDEs. Some of them there's a other just ISIS. Okay. Am I
Oh,
still on right now
you
or
froze
no?
up pretty bad there
Am I
for about
okay?
five
A
or six
minute?
seconds. Not a whole minute. No, no, I would say like 10 seconds.
Okay.
You were saying that it is another life experience, and I think that was the last thing I kind of heard. Now you're back. So,
Yeah. So we live these life experiences in in our they keep on saying language world. So in our physical world, we live a whole bunch. We almost have like all these NDEs, all these near death experiences. We have these like different lives that we live. And but when we cross over the big veil, when we open up that, um yeah, they say we have to be ready to go. So it's also kind of like when people are dying, a lot of times you always, some people miss somebody else's death, and that is very purposeful. There's no that isn't something that like, oops, I'm bad at time, that person wants to be alone, because it's actually very hard to leave the body. So they do so on a higher level alone. There's a lot of blue energy right now, so this is like super high frequency angels that are coming in. I rarely actually have gotten this, but I do feel like a really big blue energy is coming through. So let me just see if I could tap into this. Yes. Okay. Oh my gosh, they're showing it very space like. So they say that when we cross the veil, it is not so literal as how we see it. So we're not like living another life, or they say we're living another form. So more of like an astral form, more of a consciousness form of being, out of body,
okay.
in that way. And they're saying it's not literal like a storybook. You're not reading it. You're not going through the chapters of like, now I'm in my 40s, page 40, not like that.
Yeah.
But they're saying it as if they keep on also saying you're also becoming a helper. So it's kind of like along like the spirit guide realm.
Hmm.
I don't want to get this right, wrong. I don't want to get this right. Okay, hold on for a second. Oh my gosh. Okay. They're just reassuring me that I'm not getting this wrong. Okay, hold on. Okay. They're just showing me a lot of imagery right now.
Hmm.
And they're showing me going through like the birth canal. They're showing me the mother's legs.
Hmm.
And it's funny, I'm actually going, I think they're just pausing. Like, I don't know if I'm in or out, but I am out, like how I'm seeing it, like I'm outside, but I don't know if I'm going in or if I'm supposed to go out. Nope, they said we're going in. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, this might make me cry. Okay, this doesn't make me sense in my mind, so I'm just gonna like
Yeah.
sit. But they keep on saying that we go back into the mother. So we're actually birthing ourselves in our own universe. It's like going, like, it's as if time is falling back in itself. And we're all going back into, yeah, they're showing me like square, or I'm sorry, a triangle. So they're showing shapes, and they're showing it back into the mother, like back into the universe of what you knew, that watery kind of like, just folding time. So they're
Hmm.
saying it's, when we say when you're born, little children are so similar to very elderly people.
Mhm.
You're kind of going in that full circle, and so it's like you're shedding what you know, dementia, you're shedding all those layers so you can release the body, because it is really hard to release the body, so you can go back to like your birth. And that's why also I believe what they just are cluing in, or me cluing in, is that that's why a lot of times sometimes we transition around near our birthday. You know, a lot of
Mhm.
people are like, oh, they didn't make it to 100, they died like a month before, and you're just like, that's purposeful. You know what I'm saying? They're just they're coming near that time of birth, because they're showing it as where we normally, when we're birthed, we're coming out of the mother's legs, because I keep on seeing
Right.
like literally, the vulva and vagina and so forth, and you're coming out. And then, but how they're showing it, of when you're crossing the veil, they keep on showing it going back in.
Hmm.
So it's like, to me, it's like going through the time and the beginning. They're saying it's going through the beginning. They do say a lot of us jump, and that is going to be very trying on the body. They're like, Vanessa knows. So that's what they like. They're
Yeah.
not saying that like Vanessa knows something, but
Yeah.
they're saying like Vanessa knows that experience.
Yeah.
um, and it is very kind of like, it feels almost like a throwing up experience, like it's too much
Mhm.
of that. Like you have to be very skilled in doing that. It's the same reason of why I always say people who go through haunted houses and really try to understand psychic phenomena happening in haunted houses, you have to be extremely grounded of a person. Usually they're bigger, heavier set for a very good reason, because that's their protection. You have to be so incredibly grounded and strong of a person to
Mhm.
be able to do that. I don't suggest it honestly for most people at all. But that's the same thing. They just say that it's just like you're going back to the beginning, and they're showing it like folding time, like you're able to kind of like fall back into yourself of what you do know, of where you came from is
Mhm.
where you're returning, kind of like that. Like you just get the experience of this human life, and it's very linear. It's very like tomorrow's the next day, like
Right.
that kind of thing. And they say it's not that. They also say afterward, the reason when we connect with them, when psychics see certain things and bring it to the person's consciousness, it's that they're saying they're putting on party hats. So they're showing it is like a big party. That's how I always get it. But they're showing it in the sense of that, so we understand it. They kind of are joking that they always have their bags packed. They keep on showing them at the like train station, like they always have their bags packed,
Yeah.
and saying we could go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like we don't have a body to stop us. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? So it's just like, it really sucks sometimes, but you get to experience so much in the body that you cannot experience beyond, because there's not contrast. So there,
Uh,
even people are like, oh, I don't want contrast. I don't want heartache. But remember, you know what I'm saying? You are here. You do want that. And we could
uh,
go in a different subject later about that.
right.
Anyway, they keep on saying the veil crossing over isn't how we view, like in heaven, you do dot dot dot. They're saying more of when they do show things like that, they say it's for our understanding. I'm actually going to tell you a story that about the person in the previous podcast where I saw the ghost of Dr. Vidmar, somebody, my healer, who just helped me amazingly well when I had a head injury for many decades, and he what was I going to say? Oh, I had a dream. I believe this was a dream. I never remember if things are dreams or like things that I see. I can't remember. I don't know where I am, when this
Yeah.
happens, but I think it was a dream. And I remember he showed me that he was driving this red like Corvette, or it's like some open, red sports car. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like why? And it was like it's pure joy. It was just like being able to experience joy. And he drove up, and he first had a heart attack, and then he had cancer, and he passed through way of cancer. And so he in that was in real life. So in my dream, he's driving this red Corvette. He pulls up, And I was like watching this whole thing. I got the privilege. I felt very privileged to watch this. And I saw him and he went into this building and I got the understanding of this is what he does now. And he heals people, but he actually the people was himself.
Mm.
And they again, that's the consciousness, were training him. It literally looked like a hospital, but it was like a beautiful hospital, not like
Yeah.
how I think of a hospital.
Yeah.
And like nothing was wrong in this hospital. It was like a healing center hospital.
Yeah.
And he laid on this table, and it was so weird because the person um who worked with him, Carol, she's still in body, she's just fine, but she was there in my dream and she
Mm.
was working with him, and they were working on them. And I kept, I want to say God, and I say that lightly with a lower G, I
Yeah.
just call that as consciousness, but I kept on getting very specifically God. And I remember God basically saying, it was almost as if it was saying to me what was happening. And
Hmm.
God basically said he's learning about cancer, he's learning how to heal the body of cancer. He's learning, like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's going to be the most phenomenal learner about this. And it
Yeah.
blew my mind. And it had very something also to do with the table that he was on.
Mm.
And I didn't know if this was like a vibrational table of energy medicine. I don't know, but it was something about that. And I just remember the table looked very stiff. I was like, that looks really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it was something about that. And it was like all these other elements. And he was learning. And I remember thinking, oh, he's probably not super fan of it because he knew a lot, in this lifetime. So those types of things of where they're showing. And so I felt like I had such peace. And I remember him going into another room and I wasn't privileged to look at that. Like
Mm.
he was going to do other stuff. And I remember it was like, nope, that's enough. You saw what you got to see. And it wasn't like he was doing things of I do feel like they're busy. So I feel like when they do cross over, they always do, but they have all the time in the world for us. Okay.
Right.
Because time is of the world, or time
Right.
is in the world. So, but they really do have all the time in the world, but they are busy. They're not like twiddling their thumbs, like necessarily waiting for us, but they are totally at our beck and call in that way of being like they're happy to be of service.
Mm.
um but where they always show it is, so I did get a glimpse into what he was working on.
Mm.
Everybody is different, so I think that other people have different phenomena. And I think that's, remember, more in the beginning of this where I was saying they're kind of like guides, like everybody gets an experience of like, I get to help now, I
Hmm.
get to change frequency. Maybe I played the bad guy. I get to really help that energy field, and we've been experiencing it in our actual day-to-day life, of watch the news. Something's bad. Doesn't matter if you're watching this in 2027, something's probably bad. You know what I'm saying? So like these types of things, they're helping alleviate and relieve the density, hi sweetheart, of that energy,
Yeah.
and be able to like kind of like expand it, because that expansion is the healing. But they need us. They need us. And that's where intuition is so important, because they need us to do it in the physical. Because otherwise it's just like, who cares? Like they're all they're doing is helping. Again, nothing's wrong here. It's just helping us help us,
Right.
essentially. So not for utopia, but for the understanding of contrast and how it's appreciating itself,
Huh.
essentially that.
Um, on the other side, is there is there I think I'm drawn to want it to be a space, like a
Mhm.
space that I can occupy where I can watch a sunset, I can pet a dog. Um, is it just, I mean, you had a dream and you saw a physical space.
Yes.
Is there, I guess, is it like, is there like a space that they occupy where they, you know, I mean, I guess that's just kind of like that's the thing. I'm always kind of, my mind is always wondering. Like, I've had dreams where I've felt more than dreams, right? Where I was like, how would, like, once had a dream. I was on a farm, and my dog, who had passed, also named Luna, was there, and I was like, "Oh, hey!" And I knew it was her, and I mean, it looked like her, and she walked me over to this person who was, it was a farm that didn't really seem super familiar, but and I talked to a guy there who I, it felt like in the dream, I'm like, I think this is like one of my great uncles or great grandfathers, and I was like, and he was just doing some stuff, and I'm like, so I don't know if that was just an EO dream or if there is some physicality or form in that realm.
Yes and no. So that let's say great uncle, did you say?
It felt like either a great grandfather or like a great uncle or someone who was tall and lanky like me. So
So yeah,
I just kind of had the sense. I was like, oh, and I feel like we'd never actually. There's no one I'd ever met in my life here, and so
yeah.
it just felt like I was there. And I asked him a question, and he kind of chuckled, and I was like, oh, hey, I was like, it's good to see someone's looking after Luna, my dog. And I was like, is she here? And he laughed, and he's like, sometimes, like, you know. And I was like, oh, I just asked a stupid, like, living human question, didn't I? But he was like, he seemed really relaxed, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, it's nice to be here. And I just kind of, and that's the only part of the dream I remember at this point. But it was like that feeling. I woke up and I was like, that was more than a dream. That was just more than a dream. And
That's the visitation, yeah.
yeah,
Because you
and so I didn't know if
yeah.
being either in that space or having them come here, I constructed something that made sense to my living brain.
I feel like you did I do feel like you went. Okay, so I
Okay.
don't feel like it's here. I feel like you went. It's like a plane of exist. So like remember I was talking about parallel or
Yeah.
past lives, and that's how I view it, like this, like a
Yeah.
timetable, but I view it as parallel lives. So to
Right.
me it's like they're high or low doesn't matter, but they're just like all almost on top of each other,
Yeah.
all in one alignment. Okay? So how I view it as when you just said, "Oh, well the farm was," I knew it, but I didn't know it. It's like a little
Right.
different.
Yeah.
That to me is an energetic, it's just like almost as if you're visiting another lifetime in a
Yeah.
way. But that's because of our mind of time,
Right.
so it's just like it really is that. To me, your dog was calling to be like, no, look, this is real. And I
Yeah.
love that you didn't like really know another person, but you did know. You
Yeah.
just didn't know by name or like for
Right.
sure. And
Right.
that's it for holding it. So they are holding more space that you're comfortable in.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're giving you a picture so you understand that there is complete peace. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? And so it is going to be brought up of things that it's like, oh, I'm on a farm. Wait, I was kind of like a childhood farm or da 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 stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're always going to show it like that. I do feel like they have a job, but again, how I was showing it, it was just so I could understand it. Like if they just showed a blob with another blob and this just happening, but
Yeah.
like not really, I would never understand it. I would just be like, that's a
Right.
lot of blobs. So
Right. Right.
yeah. So I think it's that. I think it's that's how we understand it. But I do feel like they have a job,
Mhm.
but it's of their choosing and it's not work. It's
They're
just
not.
more
We're not like stuck at the post office, right? Like we're not like behind
correct.
the cash register on the other
And we're
side.
not getting paid. So there you take money out of it.
That's good. But
Yeah, nobody's
capitalism doesn't extend
requiring
to the other side of the veil. So a couple
right?
questions I have about the other side, and these are probably like kind of discrete questions, but who knows where they'll lead. On the other side, do we have, and maybe you kind of touched on, do we have interests? Like, do we pursue interests?
They're so funny. They're just like, well, we have interest in you. We have interest in your well-being. We have interest in helping you. We have interest in energy, excitement. They're very excited. We have interest in bringing as much good feeling to us as possible, to help us activate and awaken that in ourselves. That's their interest.
Mm,
They say that the interest are so much of the personality left to the body. They're just like, it's not like we're sitting here crocheting,
right.
but we are in the sense of, like, let's say how I said Dr. Vidmar, he of course he's going to be learning how to heal cancer. That was his interest here.
Mm,
So they are carrying that over, but more in a sense of what they're being helpful in. So he was learning how to heal his own body, even though his body has passed, and understanding that his body is the collective body. You know what
mhm.
I'm saying? He was learning that. So there was kind of like, and it was almost learning through play. Wow. I just opened my eyes. I'm like, where am I? He was learning through play. So he was learning how to almost like just work with energy, like
Mm,
how I saw it. Even though it was like a medical setup. But that was just for me to understand. I just feel like they're very invested in the joy is us. The joy is that we get to be here in body. I feel like I for one definitely take that for granted.
yeah.
We just are so focused on our suffering and everything that we're just like, we're just trying to culminate good. We're just trying to get more good, and feel good, and they're kind of like, stop trying. You're doing it very hard. And so they're trying to say, just access it, just access it. It already is inside of you. Do not try to go outside of yourself, just access it. It's through a feeling.
Mm,
So they are literally being our guides in that way. And they're also saying, they're kind of like, I don't want to say this, it's not so literal. It's almost of like doing an energetic college kind of. So they're learning it, but through an energy way. They are learning. They're not saying they're all knowing. So
yeah.
like I remember reading somebody who's actually family, and her father came through, and her father, wasn't the most evolved person when he was in body. But then when he crossed over, he was doing a lot of helping her now ex-husband, but helping him, who was really a nightmare, and helping him heal. And it was just very fascinating because he was still talking like himself, but it's not that. He was also asking for forgiveness, and he knew that his humbleness of asking for forgiveness was stimulating my cousin to be able to free herself from those barriers and that overwhelmingness of what he created in that time and space here in body. So they are working for our betterment and for the evolution of being in body, not the evolution of being human,
Yeah.
not trying to get a better space. Everything's fine exactly how it is,
Yeah.
but to make life what it really is, which is incredibly enjoyable. And you can do so even in the body, not even with the mind, even with the
Yeah.
brain. And I think that we forget that. We just are either or, all the time. And then it's a constant balancing act,
Sure.
you know?
Um, there is a question I have about, I guess ultimately it comes down to the idea of pleasure. Like things for me, like I have it written down. There's actually two questions, but I realize they have a commonality. And like for one, it's like, and I think I know the answer, but like since it's an energy realm, we don't eat, but can we taste things? Can like we enjoy the the deliciousness of life, or is that just purely like in our body where we can taste things and enjoy it?
Well,
And then,
that creates separateness.
huh?
So joy, that creates separateness. So
Oh,
if you're eating something, we're saying, oh my God, our taste buds are so happy. That's a separation because
okay,
that's a veil.
okay,
So
huh?
their experience of joy is so much more than what something can taste. A
Uh,
taste is a limitation.
okay,
only could smell so much. We only could taste so much. You know, our bodies could only da da da. You know, so we're
Yeah.
not even dogs. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it has a limitation and it has a veil on it.
Hmm.
And so there to them, they're like, why would I want to limit myself tasting something? You know, because tasting is a barrier.
Okay.
You know,
That's
because
interesting.
then you could
Okay.
also taste something bad.
Yeah, that's true. It's interesting to think of it as a bear, like as a veil that you'd be kind of, right. Like they would be like tasting things would be such a limitation for them. I'd take that. Yeah, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Um,
Yeah.
so here's another thing from that is under the things I find very pleasurable in the world. Like one of my favorite things are I've come to realize and fully embrace and now say out loud on podcasts is I love clouds and
Yes.
sunset. And it always interested me. I've always found them to be just beautiful and they're always shifting. There's a fleeting nature to it that's just, and I would always, years ago joke like, my version of heaven is like a day where it's like big puffy clouds that end in this just a beautiful sunset. I wouldn't get tired of it. Um, but then I was like, well, if like on the other side, can you like kind of, is it like you're kind of peering and be like, that's a pretty good sunset? Or do they, do they don't even care? Like they got other things bigger, like that sense of joy is only contrasted perhaps by our other worldly experiences. So I
Well,
guess
that the
other sunsets.
sunset, yeah, it's such a great question. The sunset is a limitation again. So it's a veil because you will see the most epic sunset ever. Let's say you're in heaven and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Oh my God. And God's like, I'm you. Oh my God. You know? And so it's just kind of like you're constantly being like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then you're kind of like, what's more? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a human, because we're bound by limitation. We need limitation. We need it. If we were out of our bodies wouldn't work. It's the same reason why angels are so jealous of us.
Mm,
They are looking at us being like, oh my God, do you have a body? Stop taking it so for granted. You know
mm,
what I'm saying? Doesn't matter if you're handicapped. Stop taking it so for granted. You
mm,
get to exercise in the mind. You get to think. You get to have new thoughts. You know what I'm
mm,
saying? That kind
mm,
of stuff. So we take for granted all those things. And so even if we were, let's say, in heaven and we were like, oh my gosh, I have like amazing sunsets forever and ever and ever, you'd grow bored. You'd be like, I want more. We're supposed to want more.
yeah,
That's the joy of being human,
yeah,
because we want more, because there's limitation. When we don't know the contrast of moreness and limitation, it's just what is. And
mm,
so it's like an epic sunrise, sunset all in one. And it's just like, it almost, you're drinking it, you're feeding it, you're eating it, you're looking at it, you're absorbing it, you're feeling it. It feels like water, you know what I'm saying? So
mm,
it just feels like the warmest wonderful water temperature. You know, it's such a over, it's beyond the senses. So
mm,
it's just like this experience of beyond the senses. When the senses are contained in the body,
right.
so now we're activating another sense, our intuition, our sixth sense. And so that's like the bridge. So
Mm,
now we're like in this like realm of no limitation, but then also limitation because we're experiencing it. So it's coming out verbally, or it's coming
yeah,
out of not doing something, but activating it or helping ourselves, or just activating it. So it's just like that's the bridge. So intuition is really much about bridging
mm,
that. It's kind of like, the Hogwarts train to the other side, that way. The safe train, so you're not like jarred, in that way. And that's what it does. It helps the body so it doesn't get jarred. So I always say you don't need an NDE. You don't need a near-death experience. I actually don't suggest it, so don't like go looking for one.
yeah.
Like a lot of people are like, oh, I want to uh LCD trip, is like the mushroom
LSD.
trip. LSD, thank you.
LSD is the chemical version, and then there's the mushroom is
Oh, there is an LCD.
so it's yeah, it's
Okay.
LSD is the drug, yeah.
Okay.
And then it's like I think psilocybin is the mushroom uh
Yes.
based hallucinogen, psychotropic.
And so, yeah, people want to do that. They want to experience this. And I'm like, you can experience this by dismantling where you're dense. Okay.
Mm,
So
mm,
by where you're feeling, I can't deal with this, that's a density. I don't like this, that's a density. There's the when you get to the place of, and trust me, I have to work on this constantly. This isn't like, oh, I get a free ticket because I do intuition. Like they don't care. There's nobody
yeah,
appointing me or doing this for me. It's up to me.
yeah.
And so I have to constantly kind of shed those layers of density of where I get stuck in thinking. And so the way to do that is a very wild acceptance of what is. And so
Hmm.
the more we can accept what is of every single thing, then these magical things happen. And
Yeah.
that's then we're in the realm of what they experience in heaven, you know?
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that answered
It
all
is
my
interesting.
questions. Yeah, and I again, like I love the for me, I love the continuity of logic. You know, like how it works. So it's like there's nothing I have written down where any question that any answer doesn't fit for any other the other answers, right? So
Mhm.
it's like it's a framework for understanding. Like for me, I I'm like I just want to. There's certain things I just want to do. Like heaven's just the idea of like doing the thing I like to do all day long, right?
Yes.
But as opposed to like the idea of barriers and having and limitations and having no limitations on the other side, so we can experience it all. And then so the idea of doing one thing doesn't occur. And so
And you
yeah,
do get it all. You
huh?
do get it all. You do get it all, but it's so beyond what we consider it all.
Here's a question: when we pass over, and I've heard, and maybe again I got this from a movie, um, or maybe another religion. I can't remember. I took this great course in high school. It was religions of the world, and I found
Ooh.
it fascinating. And so kind of understanding how people think about past lives and like maybe progression of lives and things like that. One of the I almost lost it. Hold on a second. Sorry. Um, totally lost my train of thought. That hasn't happened yet.
That's
So
purposeful, just
oh,
to let
it
you
is.
know. So
They
like
don't want
right
to
now,
ask
what I'm doing for you is I'm literally stimulating your third eye when this is happening. And
Okay.
I'm literally, so I get like the intuition of like, I just really be like, it's okay, whatever, however, if you want it to come out or not. And
Yeah.
then I'm just stimulating the third eye of you, of like being like, of holding space
Hmm.
essentially for you, of being like, if this information needs to come, let it open. It's just basically helping you remove any barriers that if it needs to be removed. But literally, it's just like being a conduit of stimulating your third
Yeah.
eye. And if you do this for people when they forget, so this is why they did it, is for
Yeah.
us to talk about this.
Uh,
See what I'm saying? So it's just like
uh,
there's no like, oops.
okay.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm happy to be a conduit for that, of course.
Yeah. Again.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll come to me.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the part about that we did that you did remember. He the third eye really stimulated and figured out. Actually, when did you remember it? I'm curious. Did it take a
It
while?
was not too. We were just. It was after we decided to move on to from what's on the other side.
Oh, okay.
Questions about the other side
Yeah.
to I think kind of what is here, and yeah, it was right when we started talking about why are we here, kind of that kind of the here section of the podcast. So it
Okay.
just kind of. I think I stopped thinking about it and it just showed up.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it always does.
So the two questions that pop to mind about the other side is when we transition from our bodies to the other side of the veil, do we gain, um, I guess, all knowledge? Or I'm sure there's some universal knowledge, but do we know all things?
Yes. So, yes and no. I feel like we experience all knowing but it's not in our heads or our
Okay.
minds, not like all of a sudden healed. There's a lot of people, let's say, who were very unhealed and wounded here. And
Yeah.
then they cross over and people are like, I don't want to talk to them. Da, 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 da. I'm like, wait, you really do need to talk to them. They come in very much of like, they come very mousy, and they come in very like their head is very hung. They won't even barely show me their face. And they're
Mm,
coming in like as if they're washing the person's feet, like very much of asking forgiveness. They're
mm,
not asking forgiveness for themselves or to free themselves. They're asking forgiveness for the other person to be healed,
yeah.
because they know on a higher consciousness that what they did is wrong. So it's almost, it's not necessarily like some beliefs are like, oh, well, you repeat this life, you have to like relive that. I'm
Yeah.
not super fan of, I've never really experienced that from other, lives that have crossed over. Oh my gosh, I always have this question and I need to ask it, but I just got to write this down of like, and again, it's a linear thing, but like what happened, oh gosh, how can I say this? What happens about their life um if they are living another life, like after they die, how can they come back here and talk to us?
I
And
had the exact
there-
same question. Like, it's like
yes,
once you passed over, but if time isn't linear, that means you're still living in another place.
yes. So
Yeah.
can you write that down like on our notes or somewhere, because I
Yes,
don't
I'll
even
write it
know how to
down right
phrase
now
it. It's
because that
blowing
was
my
a
mind.
big question that it didn't somehow didn't make it into the list. Uh,
Exactly. And
how
I don't know the answer, and I always wanted to know the answer.
can I'm so excited I
Yeah.
can't even write
I
straight.
know, neither can I. I just put a Q and it's a question mark. That's why I asked you. I was like, I don't know what to say.
Yes.
So to answer your question,
Yeah.
that those who are crossing over, they do, they know out of empathy. So because it's through feeling, it's not through that they're trying to um help themselves in any way, shape, or form, but they do understand the pain that they caused because they feel it. So they're feeling, and so they're asking forgiveness. And when they're asking forgiveness, it doesn't mean that the person in body has to forgive them. It's that they're asking forgiveness of saying, I did something wrong. Whether you forgive me or not, it doesn't matter.
Mm,
But I did something wrong. The person who crossed over, I did something wrong. And I'm asking forgiveness so it frees you, that you don't hold what I did to you hostage in your own body. You deserve to be free. You deserve to be loved when you couldn't be loved by me. It's not that I did this to, well, somebody did this to them, but it's that they, oh, I just lost my train of thought. That this isn't happening in the sense that it, of course we want to say it shouldn't have happened,
yeah.
but there's a bigger play we come into this incarnation for so many different reasons and so many different healings also. And
Yeah.
so when somebody does you wrong and they cross over, are they relearning, are they paying penance or whatever the word
Yeah.
is, are they paying for it? Essentially, is there a hell, all those types of things. And again, it's just like demons, like I don't feel like there's a hell or stuff like that. It's not that they are constantly paying, but they are in constant, they feel the pain of what you feel. And so now they're going to keep, how they show it is they keep on showing that they're trying to help heal that pain for you because they're feeling it kind of all the time, but there's no such thing as time. So they're showing up in such a vulnerable way of, I understand and I know. I really know now. I didn't know then
Yeah.
because I couldn't help you. You know what I'm saying? It's not that I didn't love you. I couldn't love you. It's not like, those, that's what I was trying to remember. It's
Yeah.
that people could only be to the extent, oh my God, my ears are so like, I feel like there's such a high frequency. Huh. Ooh, hold on. Feels like there's like a saucer on my head. Like it was so high. It's like past like ear realm. But
Mm.
okay, so we must be getting it. So
Yeah.
like ding, 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 ding. But it's not that they won't love you or they couldn't love you. It's not that they don't love you. It's that they couldn't love you. Okay. So they're not meaning to hurt you. It's just that they didn't know anything else when they were in body. And so now when they've crossed over, it's not that they're paying for it, but in the way of saying they're holding your pain and experiencing and feeling that. And that's why they're asking for forgiveness, not for themselves, but so you forgive yourself that you thought that you were anything less, that all the things that you blame them or blame yourself for of the situation, that you were unlovable or unworthy or anything. So they will always come humbly. Like I see this a lot in uh sexual abuse, a lot, like a lot. And they will always, and to me, like I'm kind of like I'm a very big guardian when those energies are coming in, because I was like, absolutely not, sorry. So they come in extremely humbly. And if they come in, like people are like, why are they coming in? I don't want to hear from them. I'm like, I know, neither do I. But I am holding space in super highly high amounts of light frequency. So this energy, they're not really coming into your space. They're more coming into mine. You know what I'm saying? And I'm holding them in kind of like their own little jail cell, if you want to term it that, of light and love, but so that they could communicate
Yeah.
their correction. So they could communicate how you must have felt. And they do. And the way they communicate that is by feeling how you felt.
Mm,
Okay. So that's the part of being like,
mm,
I'm so sorry. That's their apology. It's not really, I shouldn't say asking for forgiveness, but that's their apology, and anytime they ask for forgiveness, it's not for them.
mm.
It's so you can free yourself from them, from their personality, from what they were perpetrating on you in that lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're not all knowing. It's not like, oh my God, I'm free from a body. I'm God, dudes. It's not that. It's that they're experiencing, there is no hierarchy there. So there's not, once you leave the body, there's no like, I know something, you don't know something, or like, oh, angels know. There's no even like, oh, angels are over there. Like there's no walls, there's no barriers, as we learned. So there's very much of just communication, of empathetic communication, of understanding through feeling.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
And so
I didn't know what the answer would be to that, but that was
neither
great.
did I.
Yeah. Um, and the second question that popped into my head right after this was, on the other side, do we have free will?
Okay. They say yes, but the will is of the body. So the will is only located in the body. It's kind of like they keep on showing it like the will is only a GPS, so you know where you are, so because we have to know where we are. We're so obsessed with knowing where we are, but for good reason, because then we'll trip and fall and then we'll be like unconscious. So they
Mm,
keep on showing that the will is our free will. We're not creating anything, we're just consciousness. And so we're just kind of like in this joy of, like, it's like asking if joy has consciousness, or if joy had, I should say, if joy has free will. And it just loves itself, so it
yeah.
just keeps on multiplying itself. And so that's what they're trying to activate in us, of bringing it into the body, of activating it in within the body frame, so within the barriers of those limitations. And it's kind of like not an experiment, but like a fun game to play, of like, wow, I wonder what it's going to feel like, that they get to have a body and experience that. Wow, we don't have walls, we have no idea what that feels like, we just feel joy, you know what I'm saying? We don't feel like the contrast of that, so
Right.
it's just like, um yeah, so that free will is a very human embodied experience. And it's
Hmm.
really also an important thing to uh use, because free will is about your activation of your life. That's why you have desire. It's really important. You're steering the ship in the direction, in the preference of what you want. You need to have preference. It's not just like, you hear some people are like, oh, well, God's will, God's will, God's
Yeah.
will. Yeah, great. But you still have your will. You're not dressing, you're not naked. You had will to put on clothes and choose whichever clothes. That's will. So they confuse will with the ego.
Mm.
And so they are actually separate, and so but to me, the activation of using the ego and activating it in a healthy way is the will. So it's
Yeah.
the choice, and that goes into like fate and so forth and those types of things, which that's also something we have to we'll do another time. But those types of direction of what that is, and yeah, so free will is definitely embodied in, but it's important, and
Mm.
it's not to be like whatever, because you came here to live life, and so life consciousness wants to live through you. It doesn't need more joy. It already experienced that, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So it wants to, that's why we have contrast, because it wants to live through you. Consciousness wants to experience all that, and you have a body, so you have a barrier to experience that, so it's not limitless, and that's the
Mm.
joy of it. But to us, we're just like, that's overrated. like we just want joy.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes,
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah.